Computer. There we go. Good evening and welcome. Hello, everybody. Hello. We're happy. It's going to be a fun night. As you know, I'm Dan Winter, fractalfield.com, fractalu.com, and we have a really exciting program tonight. One of our primary guests is Jake, Astral Urmah. Say hi, Jake. Jake is with us,
Hey everybody.
our astral guide and tour of galaxy politics. He's been right in there in the astral, seeing what's really going on. And Aaron Kessler's with us, and Aircrete Harry's here, Dan Mack, and thank you, thank you. And Anna is here. Tufan's part. Tufan may be in an airplane outside of Istanbul, so we're not sure about Tufan, but he sends his best regards. So actually, I'm going to do the preliminary announcements. As you know, this is the last and climactic FractalU.com lecture for this series on galactic history revisited. And actually, and as you know, our fifth international conference here in South France is selling out fast at fractalfield.com/2025, October 9 to 14 here in South France. It's a fun thing. It's going to be a great party, so that's something to remind. And actually, we have Russell with us tonight, and Russell is here. We're going to just do a short announcement, just briefly about Russ's. So Russ has reinvented the dialogue about Fractal U in the Discord channel, and the new link for the Discord interactive, in-depth conversation about Fractal U now is near the top at fractalu.com, as well as Russ's parallel project, fractalluna.com. Russell, do you want to just give us a 1 minute?
Yes. Greetings, tribe. Welcome. FractalLuna is basically the official shop for Fractal University.
We're getting noise on your mic.
Is it good?
Your mic is noisy. I don't know why. Try again.
So FractalLuna is it good now? FractalLuna is the official shop for Fractal University, where we have all the merch. So we have some of the Fire Ray merch.
Russ, let's try this later.
Is it too loud?
Yeah, no, you maybe try a different mic later. So I'll just summarize briefly. So Russell set up fractalluna.com, which artwork, graphics, and parallel products to serve and correlate with what we're doing at fractalu.com. And Russ is also heroically helping Jake set up their channel. Is it what is your
Quantum Human.
Say again?
Quantum Human.
The Quantum Human, which is
on TikTok.
On TikTok, yes, the Quantum Human. So Russ is helping Jake set up and put together the parallel projects and products here and teachings. So there's a lot happening. Check out fractalluna.com and the new Discord link, all at the top of fractalu.com. Sorry, Russ, I don't know the problem with the mic.
Is it better now?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just on top of, thank you, Dan. Couldn't have said it better myself. But also wanted to mention that we have the red pine needle oil, which thanks to Dan, I tried for the first time, and now that we're importing it from Korea, that's beautiful. With Jake, we are doing the Quantum Human that's on TikTok, and anybody that is wanting to get deeper in touch with the team, with some of the future stuff we're going to be doing, tap into the Discord, and from there we'll be building some interesting meetings and groups and going from there. So
we admire Russ has been with us from the beginning and keeping that, administrating the dialogue at Discord. So even though we're taking a bit of a summer break here, there are ways to continue the conversation beautifully. Thank you, Russell, for that. Thank you. So back to tonight's fun conversation. Setting the stage here in the process of welcoming Jake. Jake has been with us. You've seen his Astral Urmah presentations. He's been doing what we call astral battles with the Tegatans and the Pleiadians, and he represents what's called the Urmah, which are the ancient high leonine lion beings. They're very powerful in the astral, and Jake is offering lessons in this. And so this set the stage for a new picture of where Earth's present controversies fit in the galactic history. And this is sort of the context, the platform where we begin tonight. So as you know, about a week ago, then uh, Jake and I, along with our friend Jack, who also was deeply involved with Phi Ray, did a presentation called Piercing the Veil. Was that the Piercing the Veil of Thor?
Piercing the overlay.
Pierce,
But
sorry, piercing the overlay that Jake is aware from the astral of these overlays. And one example, unfortunately, multiple of our people having looked deeply at what Elena Denon was sharing, they saw very disturbingly serious deception. And in at least one case and more, we're able to actually remote view and see a shapeshifter behind Thorhan, which we believe is actually Thorthan, and is a tall gray, famous for shapeshifting or putting an overlay, as Jake says, of Nordic humanoid beings like Thorhan, which then begs the question, well, how was Elena being sucked into something rather messy if now, as we're listening to Marie of the Swaru official and hundreds of videos there about the Tegat and Pleiadian perspective on these things, that if it's actually Ethorthans who are deceiving Elena and unfortunately, sadly, probably been sucked in, then what does that represent? And of course, if you listen to Swaru's, literally hundreds of films, you get a pretty detailed view that Etorthans are behind very high corruption in the Federation, the Galactic Federation. And behind that, Penny Bradley, who is like done 60 years, much more advanced with the Dark Fleet, the German Dark Fleet, than Tony, said that the real scourge of our galaxy is this really nasty predatory AI coming out of Andromeda, but not native to our galaxy, which is very predatory and manifests through the Mitra, who everybody agrees are the bad guys from Andromeda, and that the Andromedans themselves have been victims of this. And I think Jake's going to speak about that. And so that the Torthan is connected to very high level corruption in the Galactic Federation. And this is why the Galactic Federation, corrupt at high levels, is profiting from such things as human trafficking, which is their sort of signature move, which Marie Swaru is describing in detail the Torthan human trafficking across the galaxy, and especially on Earth, and rescue missions for all their messy human trafficking. Well, does that sound like the Cabal? Does that sound like the local history of the Earth and the Earth's Cabal is a fractal fingerprint of the corruption at the Federation level? And shockingly or surprisingly, after we made that filming saying that, sorry, Elena, but we think you've been sucked in, it ain't good. Amazingly, Michael Salla and our friend Jean-Charles Moyen and David Rousseau, they all joined us and said they think we're right. In fact, Michael Salla made another film about how, in fact, the Earth's problems are very fractal to the problems in the Federation. And Michael wants me to have an interview with him in a couple of weeks, and it's all cooking rather nicely. And that film got 8,000 views immediately, which is pretty interesting, our new film. So this is by way of setting the stage. And for this conversation, we said we're going to go into that story, jump into that rabbit hole a little more deeply. So, and then we're going to have Jake really go into this. But I want to just pick one place possibly to begin where Jake and I have just been chatting, which is that Jake's view, for example, of when the kind of bad guys or AI or some of the more parasitics entered Earth's history stream. One of the big turning points is when Akhenaten and his partner in crime, quote, question mark, at that time, Nefertiti, began promoting the, quote, one God religion, or as Jake says, there can be only one, question mark. And the one God religion of Akhenaten leads to a scene where our partner Dalia here, who is a deep initiate in the Egyptian royal lineage, who hopefully will join us shortly. But Dalia was being kind of adopted by Thoth and initiated into these mysteries incredibly. If you've looked at some of oh, here's Dalia. What perfect timing she's showing up. It's early in Hawaii, so let's give Dalia permission to get here a little late. Is it too early to wake up there, Dalia?
That's pretty early. It's
Yeah,
8 o'clock. So yeah, I did my best.
Your timing is exquisite, Dalia. So we're just talking about you. I mean, so one of the places we wanted to start this conversation was when Jake said that a turning point in when the bad guys, and Jake, I'm going to misquote you here, I'm sure, but
You know, what I'm saying is
go
a
ahead.
turning point in Earth's history
Mhm.
when after the flood, the reptiles again gained power
Mhm.
and really and went into cahoots with Akhenaten and Nefertiti, who were Homo capensis. You know, they were stellars
Tall stellar.
from Elohi, um, in the Pleiades, and they do not represent the whole, you know, the whole race. They were some bad actors, and you know, instilling and teaching, you know, this one God worship of the black sun,
Aten.
which that's of Aten. That's what it means, and
Mhm.
that's when he changed his name from Amun Hotep the fourth to
Yeah.
Akhenaten,
Mhm.
and you know, deceived people of Egypt, and then you know, and in return, you know, the energies of Enlil, which is Ramses II, and Mary Totten, who is Swaru, you
Uh-huh.
know, rose up and basically pushed them out of Egypt,
Yeah,
and that
which is
was the exit, and that was the Exodus,
that's the
and that's
title
when
of it.
they went to all of these other countries and went to
Oh,
Italy and Rome, and they established the Roman Catholic Church, and still this one God worship, and
which
and that's where all the mess started.
and what we're saying is, don't accuse us of picking on any one religion because we're going to pick on all religions
Yeah.
tonight. But the point I wanted to bring Dahlia into this conversation. So Jack is saying that Akhenaten and Nefertiti effectively were bad guys representing the fact that previously the many god religions of Egypt was because there were many different ETs and they were all gods and there was a sharing, like an openness. But then the scene where we bring Dali into this to be unpacked is we think that Tutankhamun and Jesus were directly a bloodline lineage inspired directly by Thoth, called the Houthi, later line of David Hermes. And so then Tutankhamun and Jesus incarnations are literally the Thoth side of the same Anak family, but the good side question mark versus the bad side of the family. Point being that Dalia, being a deep initiate into the royal of the Anak Egyptian line here, has been, shall we say, I believe, adopted by Thoth in many ways. And so she was stuck there reliving dramatically, complete with pain, the actual death scenes of both Tutankhamun and Jesus. And she can tell you the stories, and my hair stood up. Hello, I'm glad you're here, Dahlia. But anywho, the point being is, I think this overlays with what Jake is saying, because when Dahlia woke up, when they were murdering Tutankhamun with the poison in his eye that still hurts for Dahlia, she discovered the bad actor on the scene was Nefertiti, just whom Jake is talking about as Big Trouble. So, do you want to tell that scene a little bit briefly, Dahlia, or how are we doing here?
Yeah, I think totally. I think it's all relevant and it's all connected. And what Jake said, I fully agree in terms of like reptilian negative influence. Specifically with Nefertiti and Akhenaten, like they were seated in that family. It didn't seem genuine. Like their genetics are different. Like if you look at Nefertiti and her daughters, they all have the elongated skulls,
Mm-hmm.
which is like reminiscent of the ones found in South America
Yes.
and Mesoamerica. So it kind of ties into that genealogy as well. When you look at the skull of King Tut, he had a different type of skull. He was a different hybrid, and um, I think he was like the first avatar of this, let's call it experiment, where It's the direct avatar of Thoth. Thoth was not working on his own because he has, his father Enki is connected to in the Egyptian pantheon. So it's Thoth, it's Amun-Ra, it's Enki. The three of them were connected to this lineage. And so I've seen very clearly how Nefertiti comes from that negative reptilian ET, and I've seen her like a serpent figure, but not a positive serpent figure. And that same negative reptilian ET is the one responsible for stealing the crystal on top of the pyramid. It was that was a big war that Thoth had to reclaim the crystal from them, like take it back.
Yeah, which would be related to the Federation story, perhaps, or at least the parasitic part of the story. And I think, and Jake says that this was manifested later. Well, actually, Dalia says that this manifested later in the fact that Egypt still today is ruled by the same lineage of military generals,
Yes.
and Horemheb, who murdered Tutankhamun. Is this karma or what?
That's the unfortunate thing. It's like the royal family, pretty much the royal lineage has ended, has been severed. There has been like a severing, a tear in the timeline ever since the death of Tutankhamun. I find it hard to say his name in English, but Tutankhamun. That's how we say it, anyways. So I'll just say Tut.
And and we want to pursue this, but we also want to stay also with the big picture here. And so then, if this is related, if the Aten story here is related to the recurrent reemergence of this parasitic soul-eating AI, perhaps out of Andromeda, as Penny is saying. And Dalia believes she actually saw some of the astral face of that AI. Is that true?
Yeah, I've had this is my enemy on the astral. This is who I fight, like on the daily, like right now, as Ningish in the body of my higher self, Ningish. This is who I'm having wars with. And I've
this
had
is what
encounters with that entity, with that AI entity.
And there's a parallel to what Jake is saying here, and a parallel to what Penny Bradley is saying, and the fact that these fit together is a bit of a condemnation of Elena being fooled. And so then let's get back to Elena Danaan. So then, although Elena claimed that she could not be remote viewed, in fact, when you looked, Jake said it was the Torthans who probably with the tall gray shapeshifters famous for projecting themselves as Nordics. So when you looked at who Thorhan was behind Elena and did remote view.
Yeah, I saw shape-shifting reptilian entities. Well, they were not shape-shifting at the time. I saw them in the reptilian form. And they had the elongated skulls as well. I saw two entities specifically working with Thor. It was not one entity. It was two, a male and a female.
Yeah.
And they both had the elongated skulls.
So this gets a bit convincing here. And as
they all mind control together. I mean, they're.
Yeah, because it's a hive mind behind. Exactly. And Jake says it's more than coincidence that Thorhan is very close to Ethorthan. I mean, this gets a little messy. So then central to this story for Jake is that he has been working directly with the Swaru, Tayghat, and Pleiadians. And the Tayghatans are part of the triad with the Urmah and Arcturian? No. Or the triad is
Antarians, the Urmah, the Antarians, and the Tayghatans are creating the triad backed by the Alcyone Council, which is also known as the Council of Nine, and recently taking over the airspace in Earth. If you've noticed, you have clearer blue skies above us than normal. That's I say that's why. And we've taken over the Vieira, although there was a huge battle in the Vieira just recently. The Cabal was hiding out in the Vieira because the Vieira is a Andromedan biosphere ship with many different biomes inside of it. And they sent a message saying that they were Alfraten, which is people from Alpha Centauri. And they, sent a message to Mari and the Triad saying, release the 12 members that you arrested or else? And they said no. And then a huge war broke out, and they attacked the Urmah and the Hashmalim, which are Tagetan special forces. And a big battle broke out inside of the Vieira. And a lot of damage was done, but we ended up winning without any casualties. The Cabal was using, those robot dogs, a lot of DARPA, technology, all the technology that, was on Earth. So, through the secret space program and all that. So they were working in cahoots with the ex-members of the Galactic Federation, the local Galactic Federation. But the good news is that we're in charge now, and we're taking control over it. And that this is the continuation of the Orion Wars. The wars are not over. And the battle continues.
And we need to provide enough context for people who have not been part of this conversation. First of all, what Jake just explained to you is very new and probably connected also with what Mari Swaru is saying at the Swaru official YouTube series, which is more than 100 films. It's very detailed. And these are Jake's partners with the Astral Urmah who are doing this work. And part of the irony here is why Elena never mentioned the 600-kilometer long triangular ship, originally Andromedan, which is on the other side of the moon, that everybody else knows about and talks about. Why Elena never? It's a bit concerning. But before I turn this over to our partners here, just to say, the significance of this picture is that Swaru Mari Tegaten has been for many months explaining in great detail how the Etorthans represent the corruption in the High Federation, including their big business, which is human trafficking. And now suddenly we have a very detailed picture that it's specifically the Etorthans, Thor Han, who tricked Elena into presenting this propaganda so that the Federation could maintain Earth as an isolated museum to continue their human trafficking instead of. So these pictures all fit together, and basically Michael Salla is now agreeing with us on this, that this explains why the Federation has in fact not been helping with disclosure at all.
Yeah, and he's finally paying attention to the Swaru disclosure. He actually picked up the story of the 12 Galactic Federation members and the High Council that got arrested. So he just came out with a video like that. So, the two sides of the spectrum are starting to merge, and the people that are stuck in between these disclosures are starting to hear some of the real story about what's going on. Even though there's still a lot of resistance in people because they're very convinced that the grays have been eradicated from Earth and blah, 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 blah. And it's all, a bunch of generalities because there are a bunch of different types of grays, and the little gray gardeners that are doing most of the abductions. What they're doing is they're abducting the starseeds. If the starseeds go off plan, they'll abduct them, say that I ruined my body because of whatever. And I need to be abducted in order to taken off world in order to be fixed, in order to be brought back into the same time stream so that I can continue to live out my soul contracts and live out my soul life plan. That's all they're doing. And the reason they're so busy and abducting people and everything else is just because they have a lot of people to abduct. It's not that they're cold. It's not there. And these are the little gardeners that I'm talking about, the little grays. I'm not talking about the tall gray Etorthans or the Maitre or the biological grays. I mean the mechanical grays that they also develop. So there's a bunch of different stuff. So we really need to get down to details here when we're talking about certain things,
and to know why Elena is promoting the Torthan propaganda that we need that federation to save us from the Siakar, which obviously now, as Penny explains in detail, is crap, actually. But and I think we should go into this further. But I want to get back to Dalia here again for a minute. Dalia, I have a sense that your perception of, for example, you and I had a conversation once in which you explained to me that when you were actually part of the High Anak family, you could understand the Enki Enlil agendas more from the inside. Or what part of this story are we missing, according to you, Dalia, if I may ask?
I mean, I feel like we're missing a lot of parts, but we're trying to bring all of the puzzle pieces together. And I don't claim to have all the answers because this is tied into soul memory, but also my mission here.
Mhm.
Like, I'm allowed to know only a certain amount of information that is aligned with my mission or the reason of being. I'm not allowed to just have full disclosure on everything. Like, I try to get more information as much as I can, but it's a deep rabbit hole. And every time I ask a question, I get like riddles and I get keywords. And when I research and I do my research, I find out there is like a larger truth at hand that is just so hard to explain in 1 or 2 lines. It like requires probably many books to get to the bottom of this, because this has been happening on multi-layers and multi-dimensions. For example,
Yes.
I recently asked about Nefertiti's like ET origins, and then it was tied to the Inca Empire. And this is the information I got from Enki. And there is a connection that ties the Inca Empire, which happens much later, to the same ET cedars, for example, that invaded Egypt, like at the time of Nefertiti and Akhenaten. And if you look at the Inca empires, they didn't have language. They had a way of creating threads in order to record time.
The kippah in the slip knots in rope, the language of which is the origin of Hebrew as well. I did the physics.
Exactly. And if you look at some of their kippos, it looks exactly like the Atan symbol that is in
it's
just
a
like a ray with the threads coming out with the hand. It's just a different manifestation of the same entity.
The perfect slip knot, and that perfect slip knot, seen by the clairvoyants and called Anu at the heart of the sun, is the perfect implosion charge collapse slip knot. And I have a lifetime on that one. And what a nice deep rabbit hole.
I know it is. Yeah, we should go definitely deeper into this in our conversations. But I find it fascinating. Like how do we tie all of this into this like this shared enemy or this common enemy, which is this yeah.
I agree with Dalia 100% that we are dealing with soul memory here. And one of my theories is that none of us are from this timeline of Earth, and this timeline is just being used as a game board, and that all of us are coming from these different timelines where we have all of these different stories within ourselves, and that we're not going to figure out the truth and put all the pieces together and be able to, see Earth as its natural 5D state until we can remember what's going on inside of us and our soul memories and our lineages, and we can talk about them openly, even though they look contradictory, to each other, even though they look like opposite truths or whatever. But to be able to see everything from everybody else's perspectives, I believe that this is how consciousnness is expanded, and I believe that this is the way that we need to come together in unity, not sameness, unity.
Well, it's spoken very well, and I just wanted to say too that a part of the way I'd like to focus on the big picture here is that if Jake and Dalia and Penny are right, that there is essentially the major bad guy here is a predatory AI, then our hope of still having a soul after the AI messes with 2 billion children losing their soul because they're stuck in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and their soul plasma is literally being scrambled for the soul eaters. We're going to need to teach those kids what I call physicsofsoul.com, which is literally the precise thing which AI cannot do. AI can eat souls, but AI cannot make a soul. What is that difference? The ability to implode living plasma into the array, which is the collective unconscious, which ultimately is where we take power if we take leverage in the astral, which is Dalia and Jake. So, the big picture is resisting the AI means understanding physics of soul as well. So,
yeah, and I want to add to what you said and what Jake said, 100%, is also to be wary of infiltration. And this is this is why discernment is so important. In the astral experiences that I had with my team, there was always a common thread of one of the team members getting infiltrated by this AI entity. And that's like the major warning, because there are several people who you can call friends or who you seem as good people, they can be overnight infiltrated by this entity and hijacked. And this is what we want to warn people about, is like always be in discernment and always look for signs of moral ambiguity. This is the way to track. So I'll give you an example. Like, for example, in one of my astral journeys, I was like interacting with a team member. And let's just say this is a common situation. Symbolically, we were in the kitchen making a meal, and I noticed that the team member didn't generously offer the meal. What that told me is there is moral ambiguity here. There is a behavior that is not contingent with being a shareable wave. Because being a shareable wave is about being in generosity 100% of the time and being open to share. And when I noticed that, I felt that there was something off in his behavior. And that was the key that clued me into his, let's just say, partiality. Like he was partial at this, not impartial. And that was and later he was taken over by this AI entity, which was robotic. It was almost like a monster, a robot monster that was guided or ruled or led by this gray looking entity. I don't know what it could be. That's that same Etorthan that Jake talks about, but I've had this encounter with this gray looking entity that is leading this mechanical robot, and this is who I was fighting with. And it hijacked this team member. It literally stole its soul, added it to the AI intelligence of this machinery. So
it's a privilege to be assimilated.
It's assimilation. It's the loss of individuation.
Yeah.
This person who was an individual now became part of this hive AI intelligence and lost its identity. But everything he knew, all of his intelligence, his experiential memory, and his knowledge is now assimilated into this AI entity.
Was swallowed by
the dark side.
And Jake is talking about, well, you look at the eyes and the lips to pierce is not to pierce the veil, to pierce the
piercing the overlay. Yeah, I mean, these beings, they love to appear as your friends and family. If you're in the astral and you think that it's a teammate, it might not be your teammate. You know what I mean? I've also been, trapped in, my consciousness has been trapped in robotic, figures in the astral. I've woken up in lab scenarios where I've been blocked inside my clones because what they're doing, what these Etorthans, reptilians, and the whole 9 yards and the AI is doing, the regressive AI, is they're taking clones. So they'll take my physical body because they have my DNA. They have all our DNA. And they'll take our physical body. So they'll clone my physical body, and then they'll use that clone as a real life voodoo doll. Yeah. So they'll take it and they'll separate all the organs. And I have videos about this on Rich West YouTube channel. And they'll take the organs out and they'll separate them, and they'll just try to separate. And what they're doing is they're trying to separate my consciousness from my avatar that I'm sitting here talking to you right now.
Thank you.
And this is what they were doing on spaceships in space, right outside Earth, targeting star seeds, and trying to trap them inside of these astral, mechanical avatars. And it was a whole mess.
And when Jake, we didn't mean to get too graphic here, but when Jake said, look at the eyes, and I have to say personally, I hung out with Elena at tours, but when I saw her recently, even in Japan, the eyes look very, very dark, just to me. And our Rinpoche and our lucid dream team leaders, they all took one look at Elena and they said, deception. So you can actually see that, unfortunately, the overlay there is really.
But unfortunately, people's abilities to spot deception has everything to do with how much shadow work they've done. Because if
Mm.
people are living in deception in their own personal lives, they're not going to be able to track this. And this is the unfortunate situation. If you want to be more immune to deception, you must eradicate all layers of deception within your own life. And we're talking about the emotional, the psychospiritual residuals that comes from karmic past lives and within this life, all your relations. So it's important that we really take a deeper look on ourselves and we clarify and purify all layers of deception. Where are the corners that we don't want to look? Because these are going to be like the weak points. These are going to be the vulnerabilities that it will be a blind spot. And if we have a blind spot within ourselves, we are destined to have blind spots within others as well. So yeah, removing.
Absolutely. And Dan, if I could just chime in here for a second.
Oh, just Anna said
one of those
wonderfully
blind
said, Dalia.
spots I see is in the love and light movement. It is the followers of, you know, the ED, because it's, you know, they portrayed the Galactic Federation as all love and light, and they don't like to look at their shadow aspects, because it's by, you know, like Dalia said, it's by looking at those shadow aspects and integrating them into the being that you are, and getting the full picture is what allows you to see this deception. It gives you spiritual discernment. So doing this shadow work is extremely important. And going into the astral is doing that shadow work, because you cannot escape yourself in the astral. It is a mirror of your own being.
And Jake has rather dedicated his life to teaching people the skills to get coherent in the astral and lucid dream. And I'm proud to say that he liked the phi ray, for example, getting that coherence. And Dalia had some great experiences with the Theraphi precedent of phi ray getting these plasma coherence. And so that's you deal with basically when your aura gets centripetal, it gets sorted. That's the
Let's just say this is why spirits or souls incarnate here on this earth. This is for what my OBE showed me, like my higher self linkage that I thought incarnated into this avatar in order to sort out loose ends and to do the karmic shadow work of like where are the tears in the timeline. And the touch story was a major one. And this is why he reincarnated in this life, to fix that, to heal that, to bring it into integration. This is the sacred soul work that every soul here on this earth came to do, which is tangle and untangle lost memories. This is the treasure, really. The experiential memories are the treasure that these gray ETs or these reptilian negative entities are after. They want that, actually. They will take that away from you, because this is the gold. This is what makes a soul a powerful soul, because it has had incarnative experiences over and over again in multi dimensions. So don't ever like look down on your daily life, like your interactions with your coworkers or with your family members. This is where the game is played. And the astral is a mirror of that, as above, so below. So you want to really get into the nitty gritty of your day-to-day like choices. What choices are you making? What words are you choosing to speak? How are you choosing to feel like every day in your waking life? Because this is where the game is played, you know?
Beautiful, beautiful. And that we said at one point, soul was a name for how long is the wave that you incarnate inside of. The longer the memory, the more soul you have. And that's the goal, because that is where the implosion happens. And that is food for, which is wonderful. And this is a useful conversation. I do want to be sure that we get to this part of the conversation where, if we agree with Jake and maybe with Penny Bradley and others, that the Federation has been infected by a nasty AI manifest as Mitra and Etorthan, and then what has that told us about the actual problems we face on Earth today? For example, if human trafficking is the signature footprint of, the bad part of the Federation abusing Earth as a museum and keeping us in quarantine, uh, does this connect also to what you're saying is the Israel is the cabal today? And, is the reason Donald Trump is abducting the immigrants is because they want to human traffic? And, can we Can we sort out our present issues on this planet now that we understand a bit more of the bigger picture?
Mm. It's a good question, multi-layered question, but I can say that this robotic AI entity has everything to do with the Zionism that's happening, the militant forces that are actively murdering people, genociding people all over the planet, not just in Palestine and Gaza. They would be ready to kill their own people if they need to, because their main pursuit is murder. It's genociding, it's death destruction, because this is how this AI entity harvests souls. So its main target is kill as many people as possible. Right. So it instigates wars all over the planet, like all over the history of our, this Earth timeline, this Earth history alone. So the antidote is to stop wars. It sounds cliche, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to it if those who die are Iranians or Palestinians or Israelis or Jews or Ukrainians. It doesn't matter, because it seeks to harvest souls.
Okay.
So it's murder.
Yeah, and the nature of the cabal is sacrifice and sacrificing the innocent, and it's the truth in plain sight. I mean, if you just take Jesus for example, I mean, he was without sin. This is the cabal's message, that we want to kill people that are not doing anything wrong. It's a sacrifice. It's their sacrificial ritual.
And if you look at the roots of these religions, I'm thinking of our friend wrote Awakeners of the Dawn, talking about why, this is a bit nasty, but why the rabbi sucks the blood out of the penis after the circumcision to induce this wave of fear, which is absolutely, certain glandular things are absolutely shut off. And if you know that the sin of circumcision preventing later actual bonding process, I mean, whoever promoted circumcision should get more life in prison than the people who do female genital mutilation. And yet, this still happens. This is a planet whose religions have actually been tools of the wrong AI, just like what the Roman Church did to Jesus, basically. So, yeah, we have to recognize this and deal with it.
Yeah. And I think it's all in all cultures. Like I was recently reading the Mahabharata, and it speaks about demons and entities that are vampiric in nature. And specifically, like where I was doing my research in the Andes, there are these entities that are like ash gold. And these entities are grays that I've had encounters with. And they're vampiric in nature, and they're predatory to humans. And it does, yeah, it just it doesn't feel good to be around people that are working with these entities. Let's just say not working consciously, but these entities will have the power to hijack people's auras and to work through them. This is how the AI entanglement works. It hijacks people's consciousness and almost controls them as puppets without their knowing, unfortunately. But the soul aspect of them is the illumination of the soul, is the antidote again. But they have distanced themselves from soul, like as forever, like as from some do it when they were very young, because childhood trauma kind of disables that soul consciousness.
Yeah, like circumcision, actually. But yes, exactly. Yeah. It pulls the roots. Yeah, pulls the roots of the soul. So that's what we're trying to identify, that ability. And as you say, to restore the soul is actually, in effect, access then to bliss process and the astral, which then restores all those connections and coherence in the astral.
And doing the emotional trauma work, because a lot of these cults, let's say, work on like childhood abuse and sexual abuse. And so this is where they hijack the souls at a very young age, because then the person is still in this purity, and they make the unconscious decisions to alienate themselves from soul consciousness, which creates a gap, a black hole that needs to be filled. And that's where the entity parasite comes in. And so to do the emotional trauma work is to face that predatory entities that have been living off that person.
Yeah. And if that young person has gone to bed with Bluetooth in their ear and Wi-Fi every night for years, the disconnection is over already. The AI has won. That's the thing. So when we teach the physics of soul, which is your aura needs to implode without that murderous fractionation of the kind of electrosmog that the AI itself uses to propagate itself, the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi, suddenly you
Yeah.
see why Luke
And
Skywalker needed a cave.
And if it has gone to bed with, let's just say, people that are like much older in age that have predatory entities like leeching off of them, it's like a disease. It's like a virus. You will get some of that will rub off you. So also astral hygiene, physical, intimate hygiene is very important. You got to be very aware of who you mix energies with.
Exactly. Very tricky. It's like it isn't just about, choose who you have sex with because you never really get out of bed with them, but it's also whoever you merge auras with. Um, the, Not to change the subject, but there was a bit of this history that I was hoping Jake would help us sort a little bit also, that when Penny Bradley said, well, the Siakar are a completely separate race, and that Elena was propagating, again, a bit of propaganda when she said, save us from the Siakar. Well, not really. But the trivial part of that story was, oh, well, if Yahweh was Enlil and Yahweh and was half Draco, that's obvious why the Jews are the bad guys. Well, that's too simple, probably. What we're saying is that the the problem with that race had to do with the AI parasite. Or you want to sort on that a little bit about the Draco versus Enlil and that?
So, from my understanding, this is what's happened. Everything is the opposite of what we've been told. Atlantis wasn't a civilization with crystal cities and love and light and da 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 da. It was actually a global, not local, but a global civilization. That was the reptiles were in control. And the reptiles, here comes the train, and the reptiles wanted to enslave the Adamic race. Now, the humans, in order to enslave the humans that were here on the planet, the humans got here about 40 to 50,000 years ago. Now, the reptilians wanted a slave race. And in order to enslave the humans, they tried to genetically manipulate human DNA. But because humans have such a strong connection to source, their experiments they failed. So they decided that they were going to, enslave the human race in a different way through mind control and through separating the children from their parents. And if they separated the children from their parents, they could break the memory that was, passed down through the lineages. And they could, indoctrinate the children and make them grow up with a victim and a slave mentality. And we still have that mentality today, thinking that we need saviors, people to come save us. So what happened was, the Taigetans there was a civilization called Lemuria on a continent called Oceania. And this is before the Great Flood and the destruction of Tiamat. But the events that happened here led up to the destruction of Tiamat. So what happened was the Taigetans saw that the Adamic race, the humans, were being enslaved by the reptilians. And because the Taigetan women could pass as the Avas, they called the women of the Adamic race the Avas, and they called the men the Adams. Well, the Taigetan passed on knowledge to the Evas and spread awareness and help them awaken to the fact that, hey, they were enslaved, because they didn't even know that they were enslaved. And so the reptiles saw the Avas as this. They see all women as the serpent, but specifically the Taigetan women as a serpent. And the reason they see the women is because the women hold the genetic DNA, the ability to give birth and to pass on that DNA. So anyway, eventually the the Adamic race, they started to wake up and they started to leave the slavery, because it was purely mental. And so they started to leave Atlantis. And that's when the reptiles got really, really mad, and they started a war basically. And they put false beacons on Tiamat, drawing the Federation races there. And that's when there was a huge war. It blew up the planet. The flood happened, and then that's when Thoth came in. So that's just a quick summary. But they do it by separating the children from the parents, which I found very familiar.
It sounds, and they say that also the Atlantean toy stone fire crystal was also involved in that use of enslavement. It's interesting that Atlantis, in part, was originally credited to the inspiration of Thoth Tahuti, for whom it was named, but later fell into the more of the control of the negative reptilian other side of the family, as it were.
Yeah, and from my sources, Thoth was actually an Atlantean.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but he was also a stellar. He was also a stellar person with very high technology.
This is Dalia's specialty, so we need.
Well, yeah, I want to speak about soul technology, because when you look at the Ankh, the symbol of this, what they call the symbol of eternal life in ancient Egypt,
Ankh.
Enki has created, and Thoth, what they have created is technology that allows extraterrestrial star seeds to be embedded within the human avatar. This is a technology, like whatever that was on Earth before, the Sumerian timeline, the early humans, the Homo sapiens, or whatever that was before that. They did their embedding, their soul embedding, and they, the GNA, the genetic experiment, where they did the Anunnaki human genetic experiment.
And the movie Avatar and unobtainium has a certain literalness here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this technology is, unfortunately, has been also used by negative ATs, because if you can seed like a extraterrestrial star seed into a human avatar, it means you can see it from anywhere really on the universe, anywhere in the galaxy. So that will allow good ETs to incarnate as human avatars, but also negative ETs to incarnate. This is why this is the game, right? This is the Earth then is the battleground, or the game, where we get to play the game and act out these Star Wars, basically, within human avatars.
And it's beautiful, and we're kind of agreeing that the game is essentially a battle for souls. And on the day when a scientist knows more about what a soul is, we might be able to understand what we're trying to defend here, which is the ability of the human aura to implode enough to propagate into the array, longitudinal coherence, and get leverage on the bigger array. Why the solar flares change so dramatically every time a million children sang the same song. They got collectively and massively centripetal in the array, which something that negative AI could never do. So when we speak of soul, we're referring to something very specific, very electrical. It is implosion in living plasma that then actually becomes, you originally got an array inside your head, you call it your synapses. But the bigger array, the synapses of the longitudinal array of the Earth, and eventually the heart of the sun, the same charge collapse. Once you start inhabiting bigger arrays, you're doing something that makes the AI jealous.
I wanted to chime in here because this is an important point. I'm here on the immersion program, the exact technology that Dalia is talking about. Mm-hmm. Now, I touched on this in one of our most recent videos, Dan, but this was installed after the flood. See, the stellar people, Egypt was a starport, and there were a lot of civilizations coming and going, and it was very high technology and very peaceful until the reptilians in Akhenaten and Nefertiti ruined everything. Then the stellar people realized that we could no longer come down to Earth as what step downs, because Earth was no longer a starport after this. And if we stepped down off of the spaceships, they were just going to treat us as gods anyway and worship us. And that never worked. And so it was the Taigetans and other races. We brought our medbed technology and our entertainment technology together. And that's when we created the immersion program for Earth, where we could come into the immersion pods and wet immersion pods. There's dry immersion pods and wet immersion pods. In dry immersion pods, you can come to Earth for a day or a few days or a few hours. With wet immersion, you can come for years or an entire lifetime. I came here about 4 years ago through the immersion technology. Now I'm a feline, so I can't just step down off of a spaceship. That would freak everybody out. But in order to, mingle amongst the humans and spread our stellar knowledge and our stellar help, this is how we did it. We did it through the immersion program, and this is how we're doing it today.
And I might say that since one of our partners in the Therify, what is now FiRay.com, calls themselves USAMedbed.com, actually. And recently, Nicholas, who was evolving the plasma tech FiRay.com, realized that at certain higher powers, you can actually propagate your awareness, your soul, into another node in the array actively when you propagate this field powerfully enough. So just like when Jean Charles Moyen's alpha to gamma EEG coherence went off the chart high amplitude, so the caduceus of his brainwaves became powerfully implosive into the pineal, and then he teleported replicably with witnesses, came back with sand between his toes, and said he was seeing where he was out of one eye and where he was going with the other eye. You could tell what was happening in his pineal. That implosion was giving him leverage into that array. And by the way, initially he could only go to the beach because it's longitudinal there, of course. But the physics of this kind of process is not necessarily a mystery for those who have been studying physicsofsoul.com as long as some of us have. I'm saying this is not just woo conversation. This is actually an understanding of how we propagate our attention to various nodes in the array. And this is real.
Yeah. And you don't need like any special skills like Charles Moyen does. You can actually, there are several tools that you can use. And when you use these tools to get into this altered higher state of mind, you can then, like you said, Dan, not only teleport to another bilocation on Earth, but you can teleport to your higher self ancestry. And this is what I've done when basically my consciousness imploded into this higher domain where I was seeing myself among the stars as a star being in my Anak form, which is a dragon form, which is, when you look at the earliest Sumerian depictions of Ningishzerethaf, he was depicted as a serpentine figure with wings.
Winged dragon. Hermes.
It's a winged dragon.
Yes.
And so this is not to like say that all dragons are bad or dragons are good. This is not to say all reptilians are bad or all reptilians are good. Just like humans, right? There are factions. And so to understand, if you're working with dragon energy, not every dragon is seeking destruction. There are dragons that are seeking illumination and enlightenment for the human beings to understand and to know their ancestry. And so, yeah, for every starseed to understand that tree, it's the tree of knowledge, really, right? The tree of ancestry is widely available, and there are several tools that could be used. And I think every person just has to find their own path into understanding who they really are. It comes down to knowing the self.
And we try to illustrate the physics of this, flameinmind.com, which Jake has used, which implodes your brainwaves, and it's teachable. And our plasma tech, now FiRay.com, was Therify. But these are just indicative of the principle behind this, which is implosion of the aura. Obviously, when lucid dreaming in university studies was triggered by very specific frequencies, we now know they're phase conjugate implosive. They make the aura centripetal, which is what enables you to propagate in the array. And so the physics can then teach us how to use these tools better, both technological and psychological. I think this might be a time also if Jake wants to say a bit more about how you developed and how you now teach the skills to get coherent in the astral and why it's so important.
Well, lucid dreaming, out of body experiences, the whole altered states of consciousness, being in between states of consciousness, being in between waking and dreaming, all of it is like a muscle. So you really need to activate that muscle and grow it and work it and keep working it. That's how I've done it over not just this lifetime, but many, many lifetimes. And yes, I'm a cat, so I have a broader range of frequency perception. I can see outside the normal range, like you guys are teaching with the kids that can see without using their eyes. Same type of deal. They have a broader frequency range of perception. So, I have exclusive series on Patreon and YouTube where people can go look up Astral Urmah, where I teach about all of this type of stuff and how to do it for beginners, intermediary, or even advanced. If you're even advanced, I'd love to have you on board. I do have private sessions and everything else available on Patreon at Astral Urmah.
And we will have links with this film, obviously. And then this might lead us to a bit of conversation about your experiences in dealing with this parasitic AI on the astral levels. I think both of you have spoken about.
I think, yeah, go ahead, Dalia.
No, I mean, I wanted to sort of just have a broader picture of like this disclosure of why we're talking about people like ED. I don't like to mention the name, but why we talk about people like that and their channels, right? Is because there are, I don't know how many followers she has, but there are many people who tune in and to listen to this lull. It's a lull. It's a state of hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, these transmissions put you in a state of hypnosis.
Yeah.
You're actively contributing your focus, your time and energy and soul energy and attention and consciousness into this entity that is working behind the channeler. So I'm going to be general here. I'm not going to talk about specifics. If we were to say that the entity that is behind the channeler is a destructive, predatory ET entity that is giving you this lull, this hypnotic love and light, and everybody's going to be saved, and humans have nothing to worry about.
This was what Jack called the candy cane version of the story of the Federation. But go ahead, sorry, Dalia, please.
Yeah, totally. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So when you're contributing your time and energy and soul consciousness to that, you're basically contributing to the massive destruction and soul harvesting machinery that this ET negative entity is doing on humans. So this is where like the rubber hits the road, so to speak. You, by actively participating in these deceitful love and light messages, you're actively contributing to the destruction of humanity in one way or another. Unfortunately, this is just the literal, and of course it's complicated, but just this is the general message here. And this is why disclosure is very important. This is not about character attack or attacking people. It's not about that. It's about waking people up from the lull of deception. And any message that tells you that you're going to be saved or you're going to be taken care of, it's basically hijacking your right to actively participate in the game. And it's using your consciousness as fuel for its mechanisms of soul deception and soul harvesting and warmongering, et cetera, et cetera.
So I think if we agree with Michael Salla that the local cabal problems are a perfect mirror of the Federation problems, the infestation, well, a new subtitle for our film could be Soul Harvesting Machinery. Sorry. I like the drama. No, thank you, Dalia. We take that very seriously here. So.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Dalia.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So so how we get out of that obviously is take responsibility for, which means we need to actively make available our own serious discipline of hygiene for bliss. Like when was the last time you went to a cabin in the woods away from all the electrosmog to discover whether you can in fact go inside and lucid dream, and that's where the soul and the astral connections happen.
I think it really comes down to doing the shadow work. I mean, there are so many people that are avoiding that because it's uncomfortable. But doing the shadow work really unveils who you are and who you have been in the past. And I'm telling you, we have not all been love and light in the past. We've been the opposite, and now we're trying to be. We are trying to be all on the good side. Let's say, it has to do with the shadow work. So look deep within yourself and unravel those mysteries and those memories and unveil those memories that, what, consider for a moment that you have done some things that aren't the best and that have contributed to the state of earth in the way that it is right now,
or things that have been done to you. And we can start by childhood. I mean, we can start by these subconscious memories that start in childhood, things that have been done to you that you don't want to look at because they're incredibly victimizing and traumatizing. And that's understandable why people wouldn't want to go there, because it's terrifying, especially for a child. But this is where we can start. And this is the bravery and the courage to face oneself, is to face what has been done to oneself.
And
so Dalia, I have a question. How would you balance out that being a victim and actually coming out of the victim mentality?
Yeah, well, it's an act of recognizing the shadow of that experience. So any terrifying experience will have a detrimental effect on the soul conscious and will create fragmentation, cognitive dissonance, where the mind splits from the body. So cognitive dissonance is a good thing to also inspect with self-inquiry. Where is it that I'm saying one thing or I believe in one thing, but my actions are actually not the same thing? So cognitive dissonance is also a hint and an entry gateway. But then how do you go into the moment in time? It's time-space continuum, right? Where there was a tear in the fabric of the time-space continuum is where the trauma happened. How do you go back and repair the time-space continuum for your consciousness? Because this traumatic act has created this
rip, a tear.
This rip that allowed that forced your soul to leave your body for a second.
And that's widely discussed, that any discontinuity of memory is where the soul breaks, actually. So you haven't got time for the pain. So if you go back to the moment of maximum pain, which was actually when the pain got so great, you separated from your body, as it were. And so literally continuity of memory is an indication of the repair of the fabric of soul directly. You find the holes in memory, which is where the pain was maximum, and you relax enough to breathe into that moment of attention and reestablish the
100%.
the memory line.
Can you reinsert timelines and memories from areas or from places that didn't happen, since we're multidimensional creatures and we can access multiple timelines, even the positive ones? Can we somehow balance out those traumatic memories and those traumatic timelines with the healthy ones?
Well, I wouldn't say reinsert. I would say you're re-experience, like by you looking at this rapture and time-space continuum and choosing a different life now. You're choosing differently now. You're empowering the whole, where the holes were. You're putting plasma, you're putting energy, injecting energy where the pain was, where the rapture, the disability. Imagine like a disabled person growing like another limb. By having a new life, you have the opportunity to insert, like you said, Jake, to insert a different timeline within this gap, this time-space gap.
And we call it sometimes a bliss cocoon. And somebody talked about fire. It was actually Christine said it felt like a bliss cocoon. But that cocooning is where the implosion happens and where the fusion happens. And the article where all these films are ET history is fractalfield.com/fusion in the blood for exactly that reason. The physics of bliss is literally fusion in the blood. And that fusion implosion in the plasma is where soul is woven into continuity of memory. The long wave embeds in the short. And so these stories fit together nicely.
And I would just want to add something, Dan, to this because this is very important. So the trick is you can feel bliss, feel as much bliss as you can, but the real challenge is to bring in the bliss where the pain is. So you have to conjure the pain first. You have to go there first, and this is where it takes bravery because you're literally trying to feel your way in the dark because you don't have conscious memory. It's not, so you have to be willing to walk in the dark to get yourself
toward the pain.
Towards the pain. And this is where you want to put the bliss and the love, the connection, the forgiveness, the self-compassion, rewiring your beliefs around that, saying different mantras to yourself to bring in that wholeness, that bliss where the pain was.
As I say, pull yourself together, literally.
Oh, we have Dan McDonald, holistic way is back. That is amazing. We resonate in coherence, we thrive. I mean, holistic ways back is just perfection.
Yeah, that's what
find holistic way back to these places, to these dark spots.
That's Dan Mack's logo. Holistic ways back. Beautiful, beautiful. And speaking of which, so we have another question which has been relayed here. Soul Spa, Celestial Salmon. I'd love to know what Heru Thoth, Dalia, thinks the Kordylewski clouds are in layman's terms, like Akashic records on one side and Metatron Creator on the other. Big questions with not so similar answers. Kordylewski clouds are the nodal places in the aura of the planet and the solar system, sort of thing, I believe. So, but it's true that this would be a fragment of the soul memory of the planet. Very interesting, appropriate. Another question here was Sebastian Guetta. How can an AI assimilate a soul or can ever be self-organized and conscious without one? I understand parasite entities feeding off souls and people's energy, but I don't understand how AI does it. Yes, so I think it was Jake who actually said.
I can answer this one.
Go ahead.
How can an AI assimilate a soul? It's basically through trickery, through convincing a soul that it's limited and that it stays limited after death. So what happens after death is different for each person. It's what you believe is going to happen. You follow your ideas. If you think you're going to see Jesus and talk to angels and the angels are going to convince you to reincarnate in order to live a better life, then that's what's going to happen. But who's to say that it wasn't the AI behind that, creating that the whole time? So that's the idea, is that we are limited because we believe we are, and we're limited by our own ideas. That's why, being very aware and consciously choosing, being aware of your own attachments to these ideas is very, very important, and to be fluid with your attachments.
And there's another level to that question, which is the Andromeda has reported many times the parasitic nature of interstellar parasites, that actual souls were captured inside these egg jars. And this is actually an implosive component of living plasma, which is marketed as food for some bad guys. I mean, they do. The soul force is a certain quality of living plasma to implode and then embed in that array. And that can be a battery for some bad guys as well. It's directly behind the worst part of human trafficking. So once we understand a little bit about what soul force is electrically, implosion in the plasma, we understand that how this becomes currency among parasitic beings, unfortunately. And that although they... Go ahead.
Can I just add to that a soul can only be trapped as long as it's being entertained, because your point of attention of consciousness is your soul. as long as the AI is keeping that point of attention entertained, like a movie, like watching a movie, then it stays trapped. As soon as it loses interest, it can just go out of the pod or out of the container or whatever. So it's very hard to trap a soul, but then again, it isn't if you can keep it entertained. I hope that answers the question.
Interesting.
I want
Dalia?
to add an answer to that question. So think of insectoids. Think of, even in nature, think of mosquitoes. What are mosquitoes? Do they have souls? What are, think of swarms of insectoids that only have one target, which is to feed on life. There is no question. There is a will, and there is a, let's just say, a function and a purpose and a mission. So this is the AI. Its mission is to harvest souls, feed on human life, because it generates this plasma force that keeps it running, right? But it doesn't have a soul innately. It has a function and it has a target. Think of the Terminator. Think of just like predatory beings,
And a lot of that has to do with the nature of certain collective mind and even the collective mind of a hive. And it's a very deep story. Thank you.
This is why humans are special, because they have soul, they have consciousness, they have choice. But nature is capable of creating hive minds. AI is not like a human invention. There is AI in nature, in the cosmos.
And predatory AIs and intelligent and useful AIs. But that's what we're saying is, after you get a sense of a little bit about what physics of soul means, you can begin to make the choices where the AI is just serving and not feeding on. And this is the tricky part. Yes. Next question on this. Liz says, what's the connection between dragons and reptilians? Reptiles are the category and dragons being the superior. And if the cat is a lion mixed with a snake, why are all the new empire flags an eagle dominating the dragon? There's a complicated question.
Yeah, well, I can say that there are many different species of what we call reptilians. So a lot of this is also the words that we use to describe certain species or certain things that may not be 100% perfect. So I can say that there are different species of reptilians. There is the alligator-looking ones, the ones that are on the gecko, insurance company. That's a different type. There are the crocodile ones, like Sobek, for example, the ancient Egyptian deity. And then there is the winged dragons, and it's hard to explain the differences, but it's really like having different species from the same ancestry, but it's all in our human blood also. I mean, we look different, but go back to the eye, and the eye can connect you to all these different ways of manifestation of consciousness within physical form. I know it sounds a little bit out there, but when I see a snake, like when I've encountered Wadjet, the ancient goddess, the serpent being, the cobra goddess, and Jake, you were mentioning something about females being looked at snakes. Essentially, the cobra is inside of all females. That serpent is our ancient ancestor. And so when I've seen her other manifestation as the vulture, that still is the same manifestation of the same entity. So just understanding that the same consciousness can have different species and different physical manifestations. The dragon entities have been they're plasma beings. I don't think they are here in the physical 3D, just like the alligators and the other reptilian creatures. I believe these are higher dimensional beings that I personally am a dragon on a certain dimension. And that's the thought, the Quetzalcoatl, that's that same being, the seraph. These are the beings that are called seraph or seraphims. These are the dragons. And these higher, you can say
fiery ones.
Fiery, yeah.
And the fiery ones. And these ones you cannot bring in the same category as ETs that are reptilian ETs. That's not the same dimension. It's a higher dimension. That's how That's how I see it.
The myth was if you saw these gorgeous lenticular clouds around the capacitance of certain sacred mountains, they were in fact the aura of the winged dragons.
Yeah, you can see them in the clouds and in the wind and in the
Because
elements.
that's centripetal
Inside of,
force. It's literally
yeah, yeah.
literally
All-
precipitating.
yes, and the volcanic eruptions. Everything looks very serpentine when you
Yeah.
look at the nature patterns.
And my friend David Yarrow wrote the book Dragon in the Ice Castle. He saw these Earth plasma dragons coming out, and this was quite literal in those days. I mean, so
Yeah.
this is living plasma entities that can exist on a very high level.
You need an active third eye to be able to perceive them with the human mind. If you have done your psychic homework and opened up your psychic faculties, this is how you can interact with them and see them.
So, well, this is wonderful. We've even played with some of the questions here. Let's step back as we near the end of our time and see if we've focused enough on the happily ever after.
We're almost there. We're almost to the happily ever after.
So,
you know.
Aaron, did you have your hand up, Aaron? Did you want to say something? Yes, Aaron.
Yeah, hi. So with everything you guys have just described and everything that's presently going on and being engaged in real time, I mean, multiple dimensions and layers, even as we sit here, right? There's different things going on with other aspects of ourselves and all these galactic politics. How do you guys right now see the timelines playing out? What's the most probable timelines in this moment that are going to be anchored in, and what direction are we heading? What kind of vision can we cast for that?
Yeah, if we see such,
I can yeah, I'll go first.
As you said, if the cabal is Israel, and now we see the messes are getting messier, go ahead, Jake, please fix us.
I believe that we are on the most positive timeline possible. I believe that the interference that was moved out of Earth's airspace is, pivotal in keeping us on a timeline, that we aren't just alone down here doing our groundwork, but they're doing their work up in space too. So together, the air support and boots on the ground, we're getting the job done. We're getting the mission completed. I do believe that the cabal is feeling the pressure immensely on Earth, and they're very scared. So they're bringing forth their agendas and their timelines for those agendas quicker, and that's why you see things escalating on Earth.
The worst stuff.
So I don't know how extreme it's going to get down here, but I do know that the false alien invasion timeline and the World War III timeline and just all of these, the New World Order and all of these stuff, they are really escalating things down here. Now, we did receive a message from Saturn in the Galactic Federation, Saturn to the Triad, saying, do not interfere with what's going on in Antarctica. If you interfere with them, then we're going to be removing you as the Galactic Federation, which they don't have the power to do. And then saying, you have been warned. All this is on my YouTube. You can check it out. Also, Swaro Official, Mari explains it even better than I do. The history of what's going on right now, just in the past few weeks, a lot has happened. But I believe, and they believe up in space, that we're on a very positive timeline, that we have been on this positive timeline for about a year and a half. Ever since, because these things happen in the astral before they manifest here into 3D. And we've been noticing a lot of positive things happening there for about a year and a half. So I think that's where we're at.
And Jake emphasized earlier that when the Triad took over the local space around the solar system from the more corrupt part of the Federation, at that specific time, much of the energy of the parasites to overshadow humans was removed, actually. So Astral got.
It seemed like a lot of the mind control was released on me specifically, and if I'm feeling it, then the other starseeds must be feeling it as well. A big release in that. Now we still have our shadow work to do. We still have our egregors to deal with, but the major influence, the outside influence, is being dealt with by outside forces. So that's good news.
I think we should hear
and also from my
Dalia.
perspective,
Yeah, go ahead, Dalia.
from my timeline. Before incarnating, I've already like my ancestry, Thoth, and Enki. Before incarnating, we ran the simulation. What are the odds of my team winning against the other team? And it was a win for us. So I already know we are winning in this timeline without a shadow of a doubt. And it's playing out, it's unfolding. It has been revealed to me in 2023 that we are winning. And that's when I remember the memories. And I can say more to this. I'm just recalling what I wanted to say. So basically, the timeline is running in our favor. And without a shadow of a doubt, these negative entities will be eliminated. They will be eradicated from the earth plane, these predatory forces. But it will take some time in the playing out of this war within our current timeline. It will take years in the making. We're talking hundreds of years in the making until we get to that threshold, to that point of no return, where the expansion of, what you can call the light, the conscious, pro-choice, loving beings being the total majority that inhabit this planet. And so this is the ultimate win, and this is the ultimate result. And to get there, there will be massive destruction. There will be lots of deaths. There will be horrors, unfortunate events that are happening. That brings me a lot of sadness and a lot of grieving on these innocent souls that are being tortured as we speak right now. But this is how it's being played out, and the end result is going to be a graceful entry into a higher dimension, a higher way of being on this planet that's aided and guided by true powers of love and compassion for one another, and that is where we're going, and so that is certain.
And the compassion there is beautiful, that Dalia is feeling that. So, and the AI cannot feel compassion like that, I tell you. and just to say, our message here is actually, it sounds messy, complicated galaxy politics, but the message is actually quite simple, that if you focus on that which enables you to have the bliss, the peak experience, the astral lucid dreaming coherence, literally the science of having a soul, you need to remove yourself from some of the electrosmog maybe, and the diet and the hygiene, and do the shadow work. Everything that lets your aura get big, it's really very simple. Did it make your aura bigger? That is the question you ask yourself a million times a day. And when your aura is getting bigger, you're getting the centripetal leverage on, which we call having a soul, which is exactly what the AI is trying to eat, because they don't. Jake, did you want to finish off the happily ever after? Aaron, your question was wonderful. And I want to say to everybody that Aaron has been fabulous in connecting us with his audience on X. And he had a very sophisticated audience of scientists asking the right questions. Aaron, I wonder if we freaked out your technical science audience here by talking a little too ET tonight. But remember,
it's okay. It's well needed, and they need the crossover into these multidimensional realities, especially the metaphysics, physics, cult culture, because it's all true, right? I mean, it's all a part of a very real multidimensional soup that we're living in. So I think it's very beautiful. I'm very glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. And the physics soul is central to all of that. Then after you have some engineering way of talking about that, suddenly all of this becomes very real. But so then, just in conclusion here, Dalia, that was a beautiful from you. That was wonderful. Thank you. But Jake, did you want to finish the happily ever after here?
I think the important thing that I really want to ring home and ring true for everybody is that you are important and you have a piece of the puzzle. You have a piece of the puzzle, and you have a story that the rest of us need, that the rest of us need to hear and need to listen to and need to understand from your point of view.
Nice.
So get out there, start your YouTube channels, share your stories, share your memories, get involved, because I believe that's what's going to expand the consciousness of this planet, of our souls, and is going to bring us, to the new dimension, or to the new density that we're all aspiring to be.
So that's perfect.
100%. And I just want to add something to that, because sometimes, and Jake, total 100% with what you said, but sometimes for people, it's not about getting out there. Sometimes for people, it is about going within. And that might mean that they need to go on a sabbatical, that they need to leave their life as they know it. And they need to be able to know really the true, authentic truth of who they are. And that might require some isolation, and that might require a different lifestyle. And that's okay. Like, to go into that inward journey also is exactly what we need. So even when you go in there and you're like in the rabbit hole of like the muck of the shadow work, or the uncertainty of the unknowable journey into the self, right? Of like the self-remembrance, the self-inquiry. Even when that is so like, what are you doing? I did nothing today. That's perfect. Like, keep on doing nothing, because that's how you can remember who you are. Like, get out of the busy frame of mind, or the need that you need to do something. Actually, don't do anything except ask yourself the question, who am I? And when you know that with certainty, that's when we want to hear from you. If you feel
exactly.
Like,
and that's where the
we want to hear from you after what Dalia said. Then we want to hear from you. That was my point. I'm always kicking ahead and stuff,
great. But when you go in that deep inside, the longer the wave of the memory you dig up, the more the presence of soul. That's exactly, and when we say the next dimension, all we mean is the superposed longer wave on the short wave, and the geometry that, of course, is Planck fire. So that implosion into the long wave, ride the long wave, Uncle Joe, is actually the presence of soul. And it's the length of that memory, which, as Dalia said, that's the gold nugget. And that's what gets us toward immortality.
And I am here to help anybody that wants or needs help. Doesn't matter at what stage you're at. I've got YouTube videos. Look for me on Patreon. I've got a Telegram group. I'm here for all of you. So hit me up. My email is astralurmah@gmail.com.
And his YouTube channel is Astral Urmah as well. Great, super. And Dalia also is offering counseling advice, etc. Do you want to tell them how to reach you, Dalia? And
I'm also here for anyone who has any questions or want to talk about anything. You can reach out to me by email. And it's Haru Galactic Emissary is my YouTube channel. And then you can find all of the information there as well. The Telegram group, and my email, my blog, everything, my Patreon community, everything is on there.
These are brave friends we have. They are out there. It's wonderful. And so, in summary, tonight, we have indeed found a context for longer memory, which is perfectly fractal to the problems on Earth. The Federation's problems are a good fractal of Earth's problems, the Cabal problems, as Michael Sala is now agreeing. And as we're getting deeper and deeper into that picture, it revolves into this. I used to call it a body polis, the political body. If they knew that the word political actually means body polis, which means the bliss body. You don't have a political body until you have a bliss body. Hello, is that revolutionary? I told you this was going to be a revolutionary galaxy politics tonight. Okay. Well, we're going to call that a happily ever after. We're over an hour and a half tonight. I want to thank so much, Dalia, for being so brave in sharing your memories, Dalia. You inspire me personally, Dalia, so thank you, dear. Thank you. Thank you. And Jake, also, likewise, I'm sure I'm grateful. I think this is a perfect climax to our FractalU.com season. More to come. Stay tuned. But in the meantime, we thank you all, our loving friends. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aircrete Harry, and Russ is here. Dan Mack and Gail is here. All our wonderful friends. Bye, Anna.
Thank you very much, Tribe. Blessings.
Hi, Russ.
Thank you, Dan, for giving us a platform. It means so much.
Oh, Jake, you're a hero. Thank you. Love you guys.
Thank you, University Season 3.
Peace be with you.
Thank you all.
Have an abundant day.
Thank you, Dan. Blessings. Blessings. Bye-bye.